Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prose podcast, your go-to source for the art, the craft, and the business of publishing. I'm Tally Shamus, an agented writer and a literary intern.
And I'm Lauren Kahn, an author and literary agent. As former attorneys and book lovers, we're pulling back the curtain on an industry known for being opaque.
And today we have got a fantastic episode for you. We are joined by not one, but two guests, a writer and her literary agent. So Kelly Beck is a former TV news producer turned romance and women's fiction author, specializing in writing unhinged shenanigans and funny escapades sprinkled with real-life grit. Her former career experience includes writing the #1 ranked CBS morning show and many Tennessee Associated Press awards. Since retiring to become a stay-at-home mom, she's written 3 books and signed with her literary agent, Cathie Hedrick-Armstrong, at Marsal Lyon Literary Agency. When not writing or reading, she enjoys spending time with her husband and 2 children in Memphis, Tennessee, and rotting her brain with silly little TV shows like Ancient Aliens and Expedition Unknown. Kelly's agent, Cathie Hedrick-Armstrong, is a lifelong lover of books and enjoys vivid memories of the exact day she unlocked the secret code behind letters that, when combined, form words. Since then, it's the rare occasion when you'll find her without a book in her hand, a Kindle in her purse, or a pair of AirPods in her ears while she devours the works of whatever author she's selected as her new favorite of the month. Cathie's journey in the publishing industry was born in 2014 after her oldest child left for college. With newfound time on her hands, she set about writing The Edge of Nowhere, a work of adult historical fiction inspired by her grandmother's life as a widow raising 14 children during the 1-2 punch of the 1930s Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. 3 years later, she followed up with her sophomore novel, Rome, a young adult title inspired by the homeless community that resides in the town where she currently lives. The release of the second book coincided with Cathie's first job as a literary agent, where she spent 8 years learning the industry before joining the team at Marsal Lyon. Born and raised in Oklahoma, Cathie is a 1992 graduate of the University of Oklahoma, where she received a BA in journalism and a minor in history. Not surprisingly, she's a rabid OU Sooners football fan. Currently, she resides in Minnesota, where she and her husband of 32 years share 2 grown children and a son-in-law. So Kelly, Cathie, thank you so much for joining us here today. We are so excited to get the both sides of the agent-client perspective. So let's get right into this. So let's talk about how you two found each other. And I would love it if, Kelly, you could give us kind of the debrief of that as a client. And then, Cathie, you could talk to us a little bit about your experience as an agent.
Loaded question.
Yeah, loaded question. I think it's a pretty standard story. I was querying, a manuscript, and this was back in the days that Twitter was actually like a usable workspace that people were still on, and they would have pitch events. I had put a pitch up for the book I was querying at the time, and I think it was like months after the pitch event. It was not during the pitch event, I know that, but Cathie found the pitch. I think I had it pinned to my profile, and commented on it. This was in April. I remember it distinctly. Commented on it saying, like, I love this pitch. I'm not open right now, but in the fall, if this is still available, I really want to see it. And her reasoning for that was, I think, like, your son had just graduated and your daughter was getting married, right?
Both, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she wasn't working for the summer, understandably. So I remember being like, I'm going to slide in her DMs and see if I can get an early submission link. So I think I did. And I was like, oh, I would love to send this to you. Can you tell me when you're going to be open so I can mark it on my calendar or something? I remember going to all our friends being like, what are we going to say? What can I say to this agent? She gave me a link. And in full disclosure, she said, like, I am not looking at this summer. You can go ahead and send it to me just to be in my queue. But, I have all this stuff going on. So then it was September. All this time had passed. She had the query the whole time, hadn't looked at it, as she had said she wasn't going to. And I got a not offer, but offer from Rising Action, which is an independent publisher, basically saying she was really interested in it, but she thought it deserved a bigger opportunity than what she can provide. And she was like, I'm going to send you to my friend, Cathie Armstrong, who's a literary agent. Cathie had already had it in her queue. And then she gave me an R&R, and the rest is history.
Amazing. Kathy, what was your experience like?
Pretty close to that. My first clue should have been, oh, I'd love to send this to you. No, I'm kidding. Pretty much the same thing. So I had gotten, I don't know if it was a call or a text message from Alex at Rising Action, actually. And she said, I have this author. I think that she's fantastic. I think that she could have a bigger platform. She could have a bigger opportunities. So I'd like you to look at her. If you don't take her on, it's going to be a little bit of work, but I think she's got what it takes to make it on a bigger level than a small publisher. Not that Rising Action was anything to sneeze at, but it was, she felt like it could go with a big five. So I recognized the title because it was in my inbox. And so I went and I took a look at it. And I think I sent you an email to begin with that said, I don't think this is ready. I think, take a look at my editing document. I'd like you to do a couple of chapters just to see what you can do with this and send it back to me.
You said at the bottom of that email, so I got my offer off an R&R, and I feel like that's pretty common knowledge. Like, if you follow me at any point of time, this was a whole ordeal for us. We're being very nice to each other right now, but at the time, we were not nice to each other when this
We
went
were
down.
not. We were building a relationship, though. I felt like,
Yeah.
even though you were just like Little Miss Snarky Pants, something about you, Kel, I related to you. I related to you from the very first time you opened your snarky mouth. And I've enjoyed every minute of getting to know you. I've enjoyed the ups and the downs. I've enjoyed the whole thing. But yeah, it was
Well,
we were
the
destined.
reason for the snark, lovingly, was the R&R was not anything developmental. It was all like editorial. Like, commas are wrong, too much passive voice. My commas are still wrong, spoiler alert. And all this stuff. And so she sends me like this giant editing doc, which is public info. Like, you can go on her page and find it. She shares with everybody. It's a nightmare, honestly.
It's terrifying.
This thing where she's telling me like all my grammar and stuff is wrong. She's making all these typos, which, if you know Kathy, typo queen. And I remember being like, what is this? What is this? But at the end of the email, you had said you would be willing to hop on a call and like talk through all of this. And so in my head, I was like, all right, this is the closest I've been. Like, this is my chance. Let's get on the phone call, and we are going to sell. We are going to sell ourselves. Like, we are closing this deal. We are going to get on the phone and close this deal, because again, none of it was developmental issues. Like,
no, developmentally. I mean, for everything I could see, I really thought, and I still do. I still love this book. I really thought you had a lot of really good ideas, really good solid ideas. But the thing about Kel is that her training is in journalism, which is also my training. And I saw that immediately. Even if she hadn't told me, I saw that immediately, because there's two different types of writing. There's your journalistic type of writing where we're taught, get to the point, boom, 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 get it over with. You only have so much space to do it in, versus fiction writing, which is all about showing the reader what you're seeing. You don't want to tell it, you want to show it. And it's two very different kinds of writing, and some people can do it and some people can't. And I was trying to figure out, could she flip her brain over entirely and almost relearn how to write? Because she was a good writer. She just wasn't a good fiction writer at the time.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about now the process between signing and going on sub. What did that look like? How were those rounds of edits?
I have never seen anybody more impatient in my entire life.
That's not true.
No, it is.
Okay, well, now it is. I'm impatient. If you're talking about the initial manuscript, one of the things I think that works so well with me and Kathy is, like we said, like, I was a brat from the start, whatever, we admit it, but we had gone back and forth with each other. I did 3 edit rounds before you actually signed me. Is that right?
That sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in this R&R process, before she ever gave me a contract, I had edited, I think, like 4 or 5 chapters. She signed me without ever reading the whole book. Fun fact.
Which is a red flag normally.
Red flag. Don't do it. It worked in this scenario.
We've seen a lot of that with best-selling writers that come on our show. So, so Stacey Willingham, her agent signed her without reading the whole thing. With Callie Kazumi, who we just had on, her agent signed her without reading the whole thing. And Lauren and I were talking about this actually, and we've decided that once you really refine your craft as an agent, you can recognize voice from the
Mhm.
get-go, and that's really
Mhm.
kind of the main thing propelling it. And Cathie, correct us if we're wrong, but we think that maybe that's the difference. Once you've had enough experience as an agent, it becomes less of a red flag because you can recognize.
Possibly. I think it, by and large, it's a red flag because you don't know the agent that you're dealing with. You don't know whether that agent knows his or her stuff and that kind of thing. With Kels, I loved her writing. I loved her voice. And what I was looking for, because I had seen the outline, so I knew where she was going with it.
Mhm.
I wanted to know, I could see she was a good writer. I just wanted to know, could she be a good fiction writer? And that's what she proved to me in those, 4 or 5 chapters is that yes. And more than that, even too, I was looking at, I think I told her too, I didn't have the time to handhold. I needed somebody that I
Mhm.
could say, okay, this is what the problem is. I need you to look at this, self identify and fix it for me. And that's what I was looking for. And she did it. And so when you have an author like that, that is gold. And it is, Kels. It's absolute gold. I can tell her to do anything, and I don't have to walk her step by step by step how to do it. She just does it.
When it comes to edits for us, going back to what I said, like we had edited already together without actually being like me as a client and her as an agent. So by the time I signed the contract, I knew what I was getting into. Like I always tell people,
Mhm.
Cathie is not developmentally picky,
Mm-mm.
but
No.
she is like line level picky. And I remember signing it, and I remember telling people being like, "I'm gonna regret this at some point, and I'm gonna hate my life, but it's okay because, like, I know this is gonna be better." So I think, like, by the time I had signed, I knew there was gonna be deep edits on that first book. All the stuff I had worked on for the R&R to get the offer. I don't know, we had already worked together, so I just knew what I was in for, and I knew what she wanted, and I will say moving forward, we've written, what, 3 books together
Mhm.
now? Obviously, I never had the same issues as much as I did with the
Mm-mm.
first book because I just learned what she likes and what she wants and the standard that she wants my manuscript to be before I send it to her. And I always joke with people, every agent author relationship is different, every agent is different. That's the importance of, I think, getting on a phone call and really talking to who you're considering signing with
Mhm.
and having like these deep
Mhm.
conversations about how do you edit, what do you expect, what point do you want to see the manuscript at. Cathie's different from some of my other friends who've signed. Some of them, their agents, they want to see the outline, then they want to see the first draft, then they want to see the second draft. Like they are very much in
Mhm.
it together, which is great and it works for them.
Mhm.
I think me personally, I would not work well with an agent that
Mhm.
wanted that because I get my feelings hurt. If she tells me it's not perfect and I have to fix it or whatever else, and sometimes I will call Cathie and I'll be like, hey, I have this developmental idea or this idea I kind of want to do, and she'll agree with me here. I get mad when she tells me ideas because I'm like, no, that doesn't work with what I have in my head. Just forget it. I'll give it to you when I'm done. um, and I
But
think,
that's the way I prefer it too, because for
yeah.
me, as Kel said, I am not the agent you want if you're looking for a developmental editor or agent. It's not that I don't find things developmentally in many manuscripts that I suggest for revisions, but it's not my strength. My strength is really on a line level. I want it to be as clean of a read as it can possibly be when it goes to the editors, because I don't want them thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to have to do this, 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 this before I get. I don't want them out of the story. I want them fully engaged in that story and
Mhm.
not worrying about a line level. And I want them worrying about what they can do to make it better from a developmental angle, because anything that I do, they may undo anyway.
Mhm.
So that's where Kels was just fabulous. And you know what? Have you had to send me back? I mean, I think after that, after we got through that first manuscript, I don't think I've sent you back major edits. I don't think I've sent you hardly anything other than to point out typos or the fact that she loves to sprinkle commas like, like Tinkerbell.
I measure my commas with my heart. Are they
Yes,
where
she
they're
does.
supposed to be? Nope, but it feels right, so I'm gonna put one
But
there.
it's good to, and the interesting thing is I've learned more even from working with her than I knew before I started, because she will push back. If she doesn't agree with me, she will push back, and I'll sit there and argue with her, and until I finally get mad and I'm like, I'll go look it up.
And
And
I'm right.
I'll be danged if the one time I did that you were right. And I was like, oh man, she was right. And because she'd looked it up ahead of time, she was trying to make sure that it was right. And you know what? That's absolute gold to have a client like
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm. What I
Yeah.
love about your story is you really showcase actually the value in an R&R because you both
Mhm.
got to see, well, what would it be actually like to work with this agent and really get
Mhm.
a sense for that. It was almost like a trial run because I think
For
a lot of
sure.
times authors get the R&R and they're like, oh man, and it's a step backwards. Would really know this could be an opportunity for you to see, how
Mhm.
do I work with this agent? What are the agent's eyes editorially? Because if Kelly wanted someone more developmental, then maybe it wouldn't have been a match. But because
Mhm.
your edits were exactly what she was looking for, it really
Mhm.
aligned.
Absolutely. Yeah, it worked out really nice, and I was really pleased with how it worked out. I don't do a lot of R&Rs. In fact, I do very, very
Amazing.
few R&Rs, and part of the reason is because, and I don't fault authors for this at all because I would do the same thing. But you get an R&R from an agent, and you fix everything, and then you want to go out to other agents, and then now that agent who has given you all that
Hmm.
great feedback, if it is great feedback, um, now they're stuck in there, bidding against somebody else for the same manuscript, and that's frustrating. But
Yeah.
I don't fault them. I mean, I want authors to get the best representation that works for them, and I am not everybody's cup of tea, and neither is Kelly. No, I'm kidding, Kelsey, you're great.
I know.
But, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm just not everybody's cup of tea, and my style is not everybody's cup of tea, and my
Yeah.
personality isn't either. Everybody has what works for them and what they need, and
Hmm.
and you need to find that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's funny, I've heard some writers complain about R&Rs saying, "Oh my gosh, well I have to put in all this work and an offer isn't even guaranteed." But personally, I have paid thousands of dollars to have my work edited and to
Mhm,
get the kind of feedback you would get from an R&R. So I think that
mhm,
it's very valuable to have that kind of
yeah.
input.
And Kels went through that too. She's like, "I'm doing all this work, and there's no guarantee that she's gonna take me on." The
Yeah.
difference though the difference though is I wasn't giving you feedback that was open to argument. For the most part, I
Yeah.
really wasn't.
I was
I
gonna say,
wasn't
like,
giving you developmental.
our R&R is unique. I know a lot of, I mean, I'll be frank that Cathie and I are on several Substacks being chit-chatted about. Cathie's on
Mhm.
DNQ lists, whatever. Like, we're totally in the Whisper Network and we know about it. I mean, we get
Yep.
screenshots sent to us about this same conversation that we've had a million times. I mean, we're not as, we talked about how I got signed in my R&R, and several people have put Cathie on the do not query list because of the R&R situation and that she didn't read my book and she sent me 4 rounds of edits before she signed. I don't know, whatever. Insert, whatever drama you want here. But I think it was, like you said, it gave us a very clear picture of what it was going to be like to work together. I knew her expectations. She knew mine. And I will say the one thing, everyone always brags about mine and Cathie's relationship and whatever, but from the moment we had that first phone call, we both were just very upfront with each other. I think I
Mhm.
opened the phone call with like, "Hey, hi, nice to meet you, whatever, pleasantries." And I said, "Look, I'm an adult. I have worked in the news industry for years and years and years. I'm used to critique. I'm used to being yelled at upside down 10 ways from Tuesday over a
Mhm.
mistake. I know you're not about here to do that, but just let's be frank. Let's not play games. Let's get to the chase of what we both want out of this." And I just think from the start, it was very clear cut communication. I have never been afraid to tell Cathie
No.
anything and vice versa. Um, and that's the biggest thing as I push to people, even on R&Rs, or even if you didn't have an R&R and you have an offer on the table from the agent. I know on the author side, so many people are like afraid to talk to an agent or afraid to like push back on something. And I tell people, I'm like, y'all, you're going to have a lot harder conversations than
Mm.
that initial phone call. Like, there are going to be
Hmm.
harder conversations in your
Mhm.
agenting career than just this initial scouting phone call, and you have got to get over the fear of talking to an agent. Like,
Mhm.
this has to be a partnership. This is the person you're trusting with your contract. Like, you have got to find a way to have hard conversations with them. And sometimes that means saying no. I mean, I tell Cathie
Mhm.
no all the time, but we've had
And vice versa.
conversations and vice versa. She wants to sub to whatever editor or house, and I don't want to go there for whatever reason. And you have to have a conversation and you have to
Mhm.
feel
Hmm.
comfortable having that conversation. And I know it always falls back on the, well, but what if they drop me, or what if they take the offer back, or whatever. I'm like, well, then that's not somebody that is a
Exactly.
good partner for you that you need to
Exactly.
work with. Like, it is
Mhm.
Yeah.
true that a bad agent is worse than no agent.
100%.
And if
100%.
And
you go ahead.
I was gonna say, I do think that you and I probably have one of the most unique relationships maybe in the industry. And I
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
I really am very grateful for those early days when we really were going back and forth and we were getting to know each other, and it was a little contentious at times. Um, and I'm really grateful for that because you're right. We don't pull any punches. We basically, she called me the other morning, was one of the first persons to call me. I was still getting up in the morning. She goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry to call you so early in the morning." And I think I said something along the lines of, "You know what, Kels? I don't think that my life would be complete if you were not the first person to call me in the morning before my toes have even touched the floor. What do you want?"
It wasn't that early. It was like 9:30. You were already
Well,
awake. I knew you were awake.
okay, but yes, I was. It takes me a while to wake up in the morning. I mean, I literally hours. So, but but that's the kind of relationship that we have, and it works for us. It would not work for everybody.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And I don't try to be. I try to be who I am, and that has worked really well for me for the clients that I have because they seem to value that same thing that I do.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right.
Tolly
Yeah.
and I were actually chatting about the agent-author relationship before, getting on this recording because I'm not sure if you know Cathie, but I'm an agent as well, and I have
Okay.
a and I have a very close relationship with my clients, but as my list is building, I have 12 now, I just started last year, it is starting to become a little more difficult, like, wow, okay, can I really be voice noting and texting with every single one of them? But I really like that part of our relationship. I like that they feel comfortable communicating with me. I was
Mhm.
agented previously as an author. I've since left my agent because I felt like that communication was missing. I was afraid to
Mhm.
email her, which coming from, Tolly and I are both former attorneys, so we're client service background. I I couldn't imagine, being afraid to reach out to my attorney,
Mhm.
and then when I was
Yep.
afraid to reach out to my agent, I was like, "Well, what is happening here? I feel like
Mhm.
we're losing something." So I really admire your relationship with Kelly. I think that's amazing, and I actually am curious, is this a similar relationship with your other clients, or is it really just Kelly?
I would say that I have a similar relationship with, well, I mean, she's more outspoken than most, and I am
Right.
I am more, um, snarky with her probably than I am with most, just because we have that relationship and we've come to understand each other. But I have like 33-ish clients, and all of them, I don't think any of them are afraid to reach out at any time. I get text
That's
messages
great.
here, and we were just talking to Rebecca the other day on TikTok Live, and they'll pop in while I'm in the middle of typing something. They'll ask a question, and I'll say, "Yep, send," and you just keep on. So it's kind of that one of those things all the time. And then I have clients that never reach out unless they need something. But I've had conversations with them, and I'm like, "Okay, I just need to make sure that you're not reaching out because you're afraid to. You're not reaching out because you don't need
Uh-huh.
me. You're not, you don't, that's just not your style." And it seems to be, but I think that most of them, Kelsey, you talked to quite a few of them. Do you feel like most of
Mhm.
them feel comfortable reaching out?
Mhm. I
Yeah.
always, well, at this point, I have the reputation that I have about being a brat with Cathie. But I feel like I'm the one they come to if there is an issue and they're afraid to go to Cathie. Like
Mhm.
I get the big sister treatment of like,
Yeah.
well, I sent Cathie something a week ago and she hasn't, whatever. And I'm like, all right, well, first of all, Cathie's notoriously behind always. I promise she doesn't
Mhm.
hate you. But that's my thing is I'm like, you just have to call her. And they're like, but what if, what if? I'm like, she's not going to do anything.
Mm-mm.
But no, I wouldn't say any of us are afraid to reach out to you. And I think
Mm-mm.
Cathie's really good at managing what everybody needs. Her and I talk a lot, but I think her and I have a friendship like outside the agent author
Yeah.
relationship as well. We've
Mhm.
talked about that a little bit before. Like we're all fun and jokes and games, but also Cathie and I know when it's time to get serious, like we can buckle
Mhm.
in and there's work and then, there's our friendship on the side.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We've had
And that friendship is because of the work that we did together and how closely we got together.
Yeah, because I mean, we'll have, business calls where I'll even
Mhm.
joke, like, I'm setting a timer. We have 30
Yep.
minutes. Let's get through this. And it is a much different tone than even like,
Mhm.
this conversation we're having. Like, we
Yeah.
know when it's time to lock in. And yeah, she has some clients you talk to maybe what, 4 times a year? Maybe.
Yeah. I have a few that
And
are like that I have to reach out and say, "Okay, it's the new year. I haven't talked to you in a while. Let's have a conversation," and I think they come to it like, "Oh god, I have to talk to her again." But I mean, but everybody's different. Like I said, everybody has different needs. Um,
Mhm.
And I don't think any of them are afraid to pick up the phone because once in a while I get a phone call from one and I'm surprised to see them. I'm like, hey, what's going on?
Mhm.
So they reach out. I'm not one of those people you have to text me first and say, is it okay if I call? Just pick up the phone, give me a call.
But
I'm
we know
Gen
that
Z,
too.
Gen X. I
Like
mean,
as your client, we know that, and I think Cathie does a really good job at cultivating that environment that we are not afraid to email her, we're not afraid to call her. I mean, pretty much from the moment you even have like, the offer call from her, she's like, "Here's my cell phone number, here's my email. Please feel free to call me, text me, email me." And she means it. And
mhm,
Awesome.
so I think that's different too, is like you make yourself available and we know that. Like we know we have
mhm.
that permission to call you, text you. And that I'm not saying every agent has to make themselves that
No, everybody's
available.
different.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. Cathie is comfortable with that. And so she makes it known that she is fine with that. And I think
Mhm,
that's something also when you have that phone call with whatever literary agent you're
Mhm.
considering, these are one of the questions you need to talk about. How do you like being
mhm,
contacted? How often are, you comfortable being contacted? Should we schedule a meeting once every 6 weeks, or are you fine with a more, continual thing? Like, Lauren, you said you voice note with your clients. Like, well,
mhm,
that's allowed because you're comfortable with that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
mhm.
it's whatever boundaries and comfort everybody is working with.
Mhm,
And I'm
right.
glad you mentioned all the different questions to ask on the call. And I know there's different lists floating around the internet, but this truly is your time as an author
Mhm.
to interview
Mhm,
the agent. I think, like you said, authors get on and they're nervous and they're
Mhm.
afraid, but really, okay, you're the one in charge now. Like there's been a
Mhm.
flip in the power dynamic. This
Yep.
agent wants you. They want their book, that your book. I leave every offer call and I'm like, man, I hope they choose me.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, and you know what, Lauren? I if you're like me, you sit there and those 2 weeks
Oh,
that you're waiting, you're just
yep.
sitting there on pins and needles, and then when you get the manuscript, you put it on submission, it's very personal.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure it is for you
Mhm.
too, it's very personal for me. What was it? Somebody said something about one of my clients one time, and I was so offended, and it wasn't even meant to be offensive, but it was like I had written I was thinking, "Well, what do you mean?" Because editors are usually really nice, and so this wasn't a mean-spirited comment or anything, but I was like, "What do they mean this is blah, 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 blah? They don't know what they're talking about."
I I
Yeah.
completely I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I take it so personally, and that 2-week period, I know it's hard for the office. I know it's a lot of rejections and a lot of
Mhm.
emails, but oh man, it is hard for the agent. Like
It
I feel
is.
Yep.
like you're right. I am just thinking about this book constantly. It's hard for me to move on in my query inbox, and then when you're not chosen, it is heartbreaking. Like I have to
It
take a couple
is.
days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
So
It's funny because it really, whichever perspective you're in, you're going to be nervous and you're going to
Mhm.
have these thoughts. Like,
mhm,
I think back to last summer when I was querying and I had my offer calls, and the agents that I ended up signing with came on. So I'm co rep. So there were two of them, and they had an intern as well. And I felt so special that all three of them were
Uh-huh.
there, that an intern was there. I just thought, this is amazing. This is so cool. And
mhm,
now I'm an intern. And I was talking to Lauren about this because I said, I really want to get on a client call, but should I ask? I'm so nervous. What if the clients don't want me? And I didn't even think back to how excited I was as a
mhm,
client to have the intern there. So I think really, whatever perspective you're in. But anyway, let's
yeah.
talk about your sub experience. So, how
Mm.
did that look like,
Yeah.
especially with your unique relationship? Like, how did the list creation work and all that?
Oh my well, I just want you to remember there is a reason she is called the brat. Okay.
Okay. First of all, I will say the sub experience now, because we've been together 3 years, Cathie?
Coming up on
Coming up on 3 years.
two and a
We've
half.
been together a hot minute, okay? We've been through some sub rounds together. The first time I ever went on sub, I don't think I had any opinions. I was like, just put it out there. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah,
Cathie
I
also
that was should have been a red flag, the fact you didn't have
should
any
have been.
opinions at the time.
Um, Cathie again, everything is going to look different. She is very open to like letting me be involved and letting me have opinions, and I have access to an Airtable with everybody who has my stuff and what house it's at and what editor has it and what date they say something and what they say in their rejection. I like it that way. Not everybody
Mhm,
runs it that way, and not everybody has to run it that way. That's what
mhm,
works for me, and that's what works for Cathie. So, but now, I mean, we've been through this, I don't even know, however many rounds on however many books. Like, we just put my third book out on submission in September. I have a really good idea on how the submission process works at this point.
Mhm.
And Cathie has, again, allowed me to be involved in it. I have other friends
Involved?
involved.
Involved?
I have other friends who, they're the type of personality, they don't wanna know who it goes to, they don't wanna know
Mhm.
when, they don't wanna know what it says, like, it just for their mental health, that is what's best. I am the opposite. I need every little any mini detail. So now, the sub process, at this point, I am probably overly involved, where I
Maybe.
will get to the point, I think that's what I called her about the other morning, like, really, really early. I was like, "What would you say if I maybe perhaps sent you an email with a list of editors at different imprints that I think would be great for another round for this book?" And
And what
I
did
mean,
I say?
you're like, "Why are you even asking at this point? Like, we already know you
It's
do this, just do it."
literally, it's like, is there a reason you're asking? Because, I mean, you do it anyway, so but
So that's me, over the top, over controlling. It's fine. But I will also say, at the end of the day, Cathie has final say. If she thinks it can't go somewhere, the answer is no. If she thinks
yeah,
somebody's not a good fit, the answer is no. I just like being involved in the process, and
yeah.
it is quite literally suggestions. I'll be like, I was go crawling out of my skin and I needed to burn energy, so I spent a lot of time stalking Publishers Marketplace, and I found this person who wanted this thing on their manuscript wish list, and this is why I think it would be a fit. What do you think? And usually
Mhm.
we agree,
And,
but
for me, I mean, I know that there are some agents out there that they feel I don't know, they feel like that's overstepping, they feel that's intimidating, I don't know what the actual feeling is, but some people don't like it. For me, you know what? I have been on the opposite side of the table, and I know how helpless that feels to not have any input on any of this. So for me, if that makes you feel a little more in control and can and able to have something to do with the process, I'm good with it. I mean, I always go back and I check and see, okay, who does she have in mind? Now, is that really the best person? So it's not like, I mean, it saves me maybe a little bit of time, because sometimes it's just a clear, yeah, she's right. But I don't mind. It's not micromanaging me. It's not. It just is. It's what you need, and so That's what I'm always looking for. Is what do you need to make you
Mhm.
keep your sanity during this process? And
I'll say I don't come off as like a do it or else either, though. It's
no,
literally
no.
like it's a conversation, like everything between us, it's a
Hmm.
conversation. And again, Cathie allows this, so I do it. I'm not
Hmm.
overstepping a boundary because she
Right.
has opened that, option for me to be allowed to do
And
this.
that is something that I have actually told my clients in the beginning that I want this to be a process where we're a partnership. And so if there is an agent or excuse me, an editor that you want to go to, if there is a publishing house, let me know who that is and let's take a look at it. Let's see that we can, because if there's a particular editor out there that is your dream editor, that might just be the right editor for you. And I would never have thought about it if you hadn't said something.
Hmm.
Yep.
Um,
I'm
so
the same way. I think it gives the author just like a sense of excitement too.
yeah.
While we've just been sitting here at our computers, go to the bookstore. Like just start, pulling out some of your favorite
Mhm.
books, look at who edited them. It
Hmm.
gives them, just like this fun activity to get involved. And then of
Hmm.
course I'll double check. I mean, this happened recently with an author where I was going through their list and I was like, to be honest, you might want to check out this other editor. And then they agree. They're like, oh, no, you're right. That actually is
Hmm.
the better editor. So
Yeah.
it's a partnership at the end of the day.
And
Mhm.
that's what I'm always looking for, again, that's why Mike House and I work so well together is because it is a partnership
Yeah.
and there's no egos on either side, I don't think.
Mhm.
It just works, and I feel like for the most part, I have the same similar relationship with most of my clients. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think any of them are afraid to give me lists or to ask questions or to call me in first thing in the morning and say, "I have a question."
Now, Cathie, I'm curious on the other side, how often do you communicate with editors? How often do you nudge them and ask for
Mhm.
replies? And does that vary also based on your clients? Or are you just do you fall on
No,
one end or the other of the spectrum, I guess?
I kinda have a process whereby I send a manuscript out 6 and the way I do it, everybody does it a little bit differently. I send out a pitch and I ask for permission to send that manuscript to the editor. So that way I know that the editor, in fact, does want to see this. I'm not just sending it randomly, to an editor. They usually respond pretty quickly. I send it out to them. And then I wait sometimes 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks, depending upon how busy that season is. And then I will follow up with just a gentle nudge. Hey, just want to check in, see how it's going. And I do that as much for myself because I have ADHD and it'll fall off my radar entirely if I don't. Um, so I will just reach out, and then usually they'll say, I'm still working on it or whatever. And then after that, it's about every 4 weeks that I follow up. And then as we get towards the end of the year, if it's been out there for 9 months or 12 months or whatever it is, it doesn't happen too often. But if it's still out there, I will send an email towards the end of the year and just say, hey, just want to check in. You've had this for almost a year. Is this something that you are still interested in, or is this just kind of should I just go ahead and put it in the pass folder? And I get all kinds of answers. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I had one the other day. I can't believe I've had this a whole year. Oh my gosh, I want to get on the phone and talk about it. And then sometimes they'll be like, yeah, it's maybe sounded good at the beginning, but it's not my thing right now, or whatever. So I get all kinds of answers.
Right. Interesting. And so how do you decide then once a manuscript is dead on submission?
Well, I try to send it to every editor at every imprint. I try to send it to every imprint that it makes sense to send it to.
Yeah.
At least on the big fives and the larger publishers. When it comes down to smaller publishers that authors can send to themselves, I don't see a value add for the author for me to do that for them, because I'm going to take a chunk of their change, and it's not going to be a big chunk that they're going to get to begin with. So why should I take some of that? So if they feel strongly about going to some of the smaller publishers, then I usually say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and release this one, and let you go ahead and take care of it. But most of the time we just end up putting it in a drawer and deciding, hey, we're going to pull it out at some later date.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So then I think you said 3 manuscripts, Kelly. Are they
Mhm.
all on sub at the same time, or were the first couple pulled?
No, well, I am impatient, so there's first thing. So I ended up with 2 on submission at the same time, but they were different genres. So
Mhm.
the very first book I signed with Cathie was a completely straight contemporary rom-com, like classic rom-com.
Mhm.
Then, because I had already written 2 books, I was getting ready to query a second book when I
Oh,
signed with Cathie. So I kind of already had another book ready, finished by the time I signed with her. So while she put that first rom-com on submission, I went through and cleaned up the second one to be to her standards, like we had talked about. And that one is more of a women's fiction
Mhm.
romance genre split. So I think the first book had been out for what, like 6, 7, 8 months by the time I
Mhm.
got you booked the second book. So
Mhm.
at that point, enough time had passed. It had been through enough imprints, and because it wasn't exactly the same genre, that we could put 2 out at the same time. There was enough, it wasn't overlapping. We had both of those out at the same time. Um and like you said, when do you call something dead? Actually, that very first book, she had it queued up for another round, what, last
Mhm.
weekend or something?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I actually called her and I said, "Hey,
I think
shelve
she's
it. I'm done with it."
oh.
I mean, like I said, I've written 3 books. We put my third one out. We had kind of paused the first one for a minute because we were waiting to see what the second one did, because we kind of had a few little bites in the middle. And this has been over a year and a half. This wasn't like, just every 3 months we were sending something
Yeah, because
out.
I don't like to have 2 projects on submission at the same time with a client. It's really, especially if they're the same genre or close to the same genre, it's really challenging because
Mhm.
I don't wanna send 2 projects from one client to the same imprint, even if it's 2 different editors. That
No.
just doesn't make sense to me.
And so the third book, the reason why we sent that out in September was because it just felt very timely for the market. Is it was
Mhm.
like, all right, no, this has to go out now.
Mhm.
So we had kind of the first book had been through what, 3 rounds at
Probably.
that point. And so like it wasn't actively going out at the moment. We had kind of paused on it because we were waiting on the second book. Again, the second book is a different genre, My third book is more of a classic rom-com again, and she was like, "No, I think the market is good for it now. It needs to go out now."
Mm,
So we've kind
mhm,
of juggled a little bit, and it's probably way more complicated than most people want to deal with. But like I said, when it comes to shelving, I told her to shelve the first manuscript like last weekend. I said, "I just think I've
mhm.
grown more as a writer. I don't think it's
Mhm.
my best work anymore. I'm ready to pause it." She wasn't ready necessarily to give up on it, but I said, "I'm ready to pause on it. Maybe I'll revisit it and rewrite it." But at this time, we have
Mhm.
2 other books. The second one, we're kind of iffy. We get feedback that it's a little
Yeah,
sad.
I
So
love
we're
that one.
it's so
Mm.
good. It's my
It
favorite. But
is.
again, looking at the market, we've had several editors say it just feels really heavy for the world right now.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
not wrong. Like, it sucks for me as the author and her as the agent with this book we really, really love. But I think one thing I always preach is like you have to have the passion side of this industry and you have to have the business side of this industry.
Mhm.
Yep.
And so looking at it from the business brain, take the passion out of it. Is it the best time for this manuscript? Like, if we're getting told, it just feels really heavy for right now. I can't control the world. So do we really need to push this out when that's the reaction it's getting? Not that it's a bad book. It's just
Well,
maybe
and
not the right market for it.
Mhm.
maybe a
Yep.
little quiet, so it may not be a
Yeah.
debut book. It may be a book that is your second book in this, or an option book or something like that. But that's yeah, and you have grown. She's grown as an author, and but yeah, I don't like to do more than one project by client at a time, unless the genres are very very different, or unless we're pretty much petering out one of them already. And I think the other thing too, when I signed Kelly, I was still learning. I mean, I'm always learning. I mean, I've been doing this for 9 years, but I was still learning 3 years ago. In terms of how do I want to do submissions? Do I want to do
Mhm.
small batches of 10 or 12 at a time? Do I want to do big batches? And I wanted to be sure, that I knew for sure what I was looking at. That I was looking at a good project. That I didn't want editors to come back and say, "Oh, it needs edits." That's my
Mm.
worst fear, is that I'm going to send something out widely, and the editors going to come back and say, "Well, it needs edits." And so especially back then, I was sending out much more, uh, carefully in terms of, "Oh, I'll send 6 or 8 or 10 at a time." And now if she were to send me something now, I'm pretty much gonna go broadly on hers, widely on hers, just because I know the writing is there. If I feel like the developmentally it's there, I'm gonna go a little wider than I am with a, brand new project or brand new author that I'm not quite sure about.
Right. That's really interesting. And Kelly, you mentioned the business sense that you have to have in this industry. And I have always been very impressed by you because I think that you've developed this really well. Like when I had my offers, I was coming to you, and I'm a lawyer, as Lauren mentioned, and I was coming to you and asking you, well, you know about these
Mhm,
contracts. What are your opinions? And I'm
mhm.
wondering how you developed that business knowledge, like even the Discord. So Kelly, for all our listeners, runs this amazing Discord that I've made so many friends in, for I guess it's kind of a romance focused Discord a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, but how have you developed this? How have you developed this knowledge, this community, everything?
Um, so I think we've all said like my background is TV news. So I always say there's a lot of overlap between publishing and TV news or journalism. So for the contracts, the reason why I'm such a stickler on contracts is TV news, you also have to sign a contract to get hired. And like, we're all familiar in an agent contract, you have a termination clause, right? Like, this isn't happening, but for an example, if I decided tomorrow I didn't want to work with Cathie anymore, I have a termination clause in my contract that lays
Mhm,
out what I need to do to dissolve that contract. And it's essentially an email. It's what it should be for everybody. You send them an email and there's a set period of time and then it's done. Well, in TV news, you don't have that clause. There is no termination clause in TV news. The news director can fire you. You cannot quit. If you try to quit, you owe them $9,000 plus whatever fees they decide that you owe for training and a la 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 la.
Oh my
And at
God.
my last TV station, it was a 2-year contract with a 1-year non compete for 250 miles, meaning when I quit my job, I could not work anywhere within a 250-mile radius of where I am now. And it was such an awful station. I knew within 9 months of working there, I did not want to be there anymore. and I could not leave. Like, I remember
Wow.
sobbing to my husband how much I hated it, how miserable I was, and I couldn't go. Like, I couldn't quit because it was going to cost us so much money. So I think from there on, I just really, I mean, I remember poring over that contract like monthly, trying to find a loophole, and there just wasn't one. Like, it was what it was. So I think for me, that's where the contracts came in. I am not a lawyer, but I have a political science minor, and I had to take a lot of contract law, copyright law, libel, slander, whatever law for my journalism major.
Mm.
And then, I mean, news is politics, news is crime. I think you just spend a lot of time looking at police reports and contracts and court cases and everything else.
Mhm.
I just, enough experience. I feel like I have learned the contract and legal side enough. And that's what I always tell people. I don't care if that agent tells you whatever clause in that contract that they never use it. If it is in that contract, they
Yep.
can use it. And
Right.
that's just life experience for people at this point. Like, please just learn in anything,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you are signing, even if they verbally tell you they will never use it, if it is written in black and white on that piece of paper and you sign your
Mm-hmm.
name to it, it gives them permission to do it.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
then separating passion and business, again, I think it goes back to news. One, I was just really young. And two, I loved news and journalism as much as I love writing and publishing. And I just made a lot of mistakes as a young, 20-year-old getting into their first job for the first time where you just love it so much and it's just amazing and you're lucky to be there. And I, in hindsight, was like, I got taken advantage of a lot because I would just
Yeah.
do stuff because I loved it so much. And so I think just taking life experience, I'm 33 years old now, like just life
You're old.
experience. I am so old. Life experience and just hindsight, like, hey, you can love this as much as you want. It is passion. That's what makes you a writer. But to succeed in publishing, publishing is a business. And I think the sooner as an author you understand that distinction, the better off you are. I mean, good books die all the time on submission because it's
Mm-hmm.
not a
Yep.
good business decision. And that is so hard. It is so hard when
Mm-hmm.
you're like, but it's good and I love it and I've put my heart and my soul into it. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the marketing team at Berkeley or whoever doesn't care if they can't make
Yeah.
money off of it.
And
And
I think that's the
that's what it
key right
is.
there. You're
Mhm.
talking about a business decision, and that is such a key. I wish more authors understood. Um, I get so many amazing manuscripts in my inbox. I can't take them all on. It doesn't mean I don't like them. Doesn't mean I don't even almost love them. But I have something similar, or maybe it's a wonderful book, but the market's not taking it right now, or maybe it's just a little too quiet, or there's all these different reasons that I can't take it. And they want feedback. Well, what's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with it.
Mhm.
It's just not. It's not ready. This the industry is not ready for it right now. And,
Yeah.
I wish there was any other way to say it. So when I send out, I actually I've started using templates, but I try to make them very, very personalized so that they meet whatever the issue is. I can't take this because I'm not over head over heels in love with it. I can't take this because I have something similar to it. I can't take it because, but I try to make sure that they're targeted properly because it's always the same 4 or 5 reasons unless it's just really bad writing, and I'm not getting that many bad writing manuscripts anymore.
I
Mhm.
think that's so important you bring that up because I constantly feel like I'm seeing people talk online saying, I didn't get specific feedback on this pass. But
Mhm.
Yeah.
what I think authors need to understand is our commitment is to our clients, like first and
Mhm.
foremost. And if I
Uh-huh.
have a very busy submission period, like right before the holidays, I had a lot of clients go out on submission. I didn't have time to give personalized feedback. Like I was
Yep.
Mhm.
lucky that I even had time to get a response out to a lot of these
Yeah.
queries. And if you were my client, you would feel the same way. You would want, me to be giving
Yeah.
you the priority. You have signed with me.
Yep.
So I think it's so important for everyone to understand, this is our job and we're doing our best. But yeah, our responsibility is to the client. And when you can give specific feedback, you will, but it really
Uh-huh.
might just be, I'm not a good fit. And
And
that's
Mhm.
enough.
a lot
Yep.
of times that's what it is, and I think some authors want feedback so they can make changes, but I'm gonna tell you something, you're gonna turn yourself inside out making
Mhm.
changes.
Yep.
that maybe don't even need to be made. Just because I say I think that this would be better if you did A, B, C, or D doesn't mean that, Lauren, you'll get it and go, "Oh my God, why did you do A, B, C, or D?" You know? And I've
Exactly.
seen so many authors try to turn themselves inside out, which is why when we get feedback from editors, I always do that, get it mixed up. When we get feedback from editors, I tell my clients, do not make any changes until we see 2 or 3 people say the same thing,
Yeah.
and then you need to consider
Yep.
it.
Yep. It's
Right.
I was speaking with my author on Friday about this because she was trying to find a common thread and I was like, look, uh, I would say half of these editors love your voice and the other half don't love your voice. So
Mhm,
I wouldn't do anything because your voice is amazing. I love your voice. I signed
mhm,
you for your voice. So you can't meet everyone's expectations. Like this is such a
mhm.
subjective industry too, which
Yes.
I think
Mhm.
so frustrating for authors. But that's why I think, having perseverance and continuing to put manuscripts out on submission, Kelly. I think it's incredible that you just keep putting it out there, knowing that this is what you have to do. This is what you could control is the fact that you can keep writing, you can keep improving.
Uh,
Yeah.
I've had clients who have, felt so demoralized by the process
Mm,
because they're not looking at it from a business standpoint, so demoralized that it affects their ability to write the next thing, and so one of the things that I love best about Kels is that she doesn't let that get into her head. I mean, you do, but in terms
I
of writing your
do.
next
Yeah.
thing, you don't. You're like, okay, I'm going to write something else right now. And I mean, the reason "Steal Like a Kiss" came about because
I was
she was
mad.
tired. Oh, she was mad. She called me. We'd just gotten a pass on Not Ready to Make Nice, and the editor said something along the lines, I think, the character is not likable, which she's not intended to be
She's
likable,
not.
and the story is a little bit quiet, and this, and she wasn't mean or anything. She just these were her reasons for passing. So Kels calls me and she's like, "I'm gonna write the most unhinged thing they've ever seen, and when I'm done with it, I dare them to tell me it's too quiet. I dare them to tell me." And I'm like, "Okay, what do you have in mind?" So she comes up with this idea, and I'm like, "I love it." She goes, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I love it." She's like, "Well, what if I give her a pet possum?" Even better, you know. So that's
I
how.
did have to call her. Like, okay, again, we're friends outside of this. So I will send her the most off the wall, unhinged story pitches all
Oh
the
my
time
God.
just to mess with her. I'll be like, what if I write a Yeti romance about a scientist stuck at the North Pole and she gets stuck in a snowstorm and he saves her and they have to experiment for science alone in the cave, like whatever I can come up with. And she'll be like, no, stop. So when I came up with the idea for Steal It With a Kiss, which is essentially like Dolly Parton robs a bank, but her ex-boyfriend's the teller, and she gets away in this like bright orange convertible, Volkswagen Beetle, and she has a pet possum and just all these shenanigans. And I think I called her like, I was like, wait, I need to hear, because I texted it to her, and she was like, yeah, write it. And I was like, wait, are you serious this time, or have you just got like too used to my bull crap that you're just ignoring me and telling me
A
yes to
little bit of both.
get on? And she was like, no, like I really think you should write it. And I'm like, are you say it to me again one more time just so we're clear, like you actually give me permission to write this very
Like, I have to
unhinged
give her
romance.
permission.
Yeah.
But it was so unhinged, you had to hear the whole page. It was so unhinged that it was off the wall, which is kind of I love off the wall anyway. If you've read like Chasing Stardust by Erica Luchdine, I love off the wall humor and that kind of thing. And it worked. It's like Bonnie and Clyde meets Thelma and Louise if Louise was a man meets um Ivanovich's Stephanie Plum. So just put
Yeah.
all those characters together in one and you have this incredibly ridiculous yet heartwarming, and there's even some real moments in there. There's some things in there that is not all just ridiculous. There's some
Mhm.
pretty heavy stuff in there that you wouldn't expect with that, and you did a good job with it, Kels.
Well, I am so looking forward for when this gets picked up because I really want to read it. I love the
Same.
rule-abiding guy who's just like
Mm-hmm.
uptight and the girl who's kind of driving him crazy. It's so up my alley.
I don't know, Kels, if you want to share it or not, but there's an analogy in there that the bartender gives about feeding a garden and that kind of thing. If you know what I'm talking about with Stella
Oh yeah,
and with
yeah.
Max, and that section of that book was so poignant and so amazing. It was like I wasn't even reading a rom-com anymore. It felt like I was getting life lessons. That was what's so unique about it.
Yeah.
Essentially, they end up in a biker bar because, again, shenanigans. This whole book, it was just me like making it the most ridiculous I could because I was tired of being told a book was too quiet. So I was like, watch this.
Mhm.
But
Hold my
they're in
beer.
this, yeah, they're in this bar. It is a biker bar. Like, just think the most classic, like, outlaw biker bar you can. And of course, the main character is off doing her normal thing. And the uptight, male character is just losing his mind. Like, she's out here telling all these outlaw bikers that she robbed a bank and they're supposed to be on the run and all these things. And essentially, the matriarch of the bar sits them down and she's like, listen. I think she compares Stella to an orchid.
Yeah.
She's like, that girl is an orchid. She's hard, but if you give her the right, like, love and attention and a care, she's beautiful. And she's basically telling Max, like, you just might not be the right gardener for her, but that doesn't mean you get to clip her and just, like, mow her over. Like, either you be the person that gives her the care she needs and, like, the support she needs to grow up and shine properly, like the beautiful, perfect flower she is, or you just understand that you are not the gardener that should be taking care of orchids. Like, that's not your
Love
plant
that.
that you should be taking
Yeah.
care of. And it's kind of
Mhm.
a moment of him of realizing, like, oh, crap, I haven't, like, I've
Yeah,
been
it was
trying
a
to control her, and that's not what needs to happen. Like, she's her own person, and basically
Yeah.
get
yeah.
out of the way or let her be.
I've loved
Oh,
that whole
love that.
analogy the whole time. I mean, I come back to it so many times and think about it. I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I want to
Thanks.
take a little bit of a step back. So, we were chatting a few
Okay.
minutes ago about different agents and
Mhm.
what they're looking for and how tastes can vary. I'm wondering if that also varies based on agency. And I know, Cathie, you were elsewhere prior to your current
Mhm.
agency. And I'm wondering how you found that, whether the agency influenced the clients that you took on, and if you're comfortable just getting into a little bit of why you made that choice to move.
Oh, okay. Um, I guess when I first started agenting, I was really into young adult fiction, and that's why I landed where I had. But after being there 5 years, I really felt like I needed more growth. I had started moving into romance, and I was doing romance, and I could pick my own projects and things like that, but I felt like I needed more growth. And experience and a more experienced mentor, somebody who could who'd been there and who'd had every situation you could possibly have. So, Jill Marshall and Kevin Lyon, I don't know if anybody knows, they probably they probably have 50 or whatever plus years of experience between them. I don't feel like there's anything I can ask them that they haven't experienced or would know how to handle. And that's what I was looking for. And it didn't hurt any that when I was actually out looking for it, Vicky Weber over at CMA and I were talking at the same time. She's like, "Well, what is your dream agency?" And I said, "Well, Marsal Lyon, because when I was an author, I queried them, and Kevin was just so kind, and I loved her so much." And she's like, "Well, you should see if you can get in there." Oh, no, no, they'll never hire me. And she wouldn't get off the phone with me until I hit send on the email to Kevin and Jill to ask them. And then when Jill responded and she's like, "Oh, sure, let's have a conversation." I'm like, "Oh, isn't she nice? She's being really sweet to me." And so I got on and had the interview with her, and I got off and, "Oh, isn't she nice? She wants me to meet with Kevin next. Isn't that really sweet of her?" So I met with Kevin next. All this time
So
I'm thinking, "Oh, they're
kind.
just being, so kind. I think they're being so nice, And so I talked to Kevin, and I'm thinking, "Oh, that was really a fun experience." And I was ready to move on. And then a few days later, Jill called me and offered me, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? So it really was a surprise. I mean, I just thought they were being really kind. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I did. Yeah. And yeah, I have not. It has allowed me so much more growth, so many more opportunities. Um, Questions that I need answered, I get them just like that. I mean, Jill or Kevin is right there. No matter what I need, they're answering right immediately. And at the same time, giving me the autonomy to do my thing my way, pick up my own clients and that kind of thing. And I couldn't ask for a better place to be, or better people to mentor me. I'm just so
Yeah.
happy.
That's wonderful. Lauren, at your agency, I know that you're also very collaborative, working with the other agents and always getting your questions answered.
Yeah, totally. And honestly, it's so funny. I actually relate to that story a lot because I also was initially told, like, yeah, we don't have an opening, but we'll stay in touch. And then 3 weeks later, the CEO reached out to me. He's like, let's just have a phone call. And I was like, well, that's nice. He just
So
wants to have a phone
nice.
call with me.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like up until I was in person meeting with the VP and she was like, no, we want you to work here. I was like, oh, this is so nice. Like now she wants to meet for drinks. Like how sweet.
Right.
Like
Right.
everyone in this industry is so nice. She's like, no, this is a job offer. Like, what are you doing?
Well, and I'm sitting here and I just now put together where you are, Lauren, and my goodness, I knew exactly who you were, just I wasn't making the connection right here. But we've
It
never
might be the
met.
glasses.
Well, I don't think we ever met, but I think we might have talked on the phone or emailed or something.
Yes,
but yeah.
no, I think so. Yeah, it's so funny. This industry is so small. And honestly, I tell Tali all the time because she's interning, she's just entering it. And I honestly, the agents that I have met with have been so lovely to me as someone coming up and just as from a networking, from a mentoring perspective. And I'm so glad to hear, even though you've been in this industry, you're still getting mentorship because I do think we can always keep growing. And
Yeah.
I feel like, I'm constantly calling our CEO. He's been in the industry since the 90s and I'm learning so much just like as things are happening. And so I love that you're still growing and you're still expanding because I think, for us too, it's like we can never stop growing either, just like the authors can't stop improving.
I feel
Definitely.
I feel like if we're not still learning, we're not trying. I mean, I really do feel that way because there's always something new to learn. And I've just learned, like I said, well, and even Peter, I've learned from Peter too, just in the few conversations I've had with him. I assume you're talking about Peter.
Yeah, from Piper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so, like I said, but and the industry, the agents in the industry, I guess authors are always asking, do agents talk? Yeah, we do.
we do.
In fact, I just got one of my new clients the other day. Somebody, another agent that I barely knew, reached out and said, "Hey, I think I remember hearing you say you were interested in this kind of thing. Are you still?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I signed her, and I couldn't be more excited having. So
Oh,
we
that's
do communicate.
awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
I love to hear that because we're always sharing clients internally. But there have been a couple times, with when, an agent was leaving the industry and they just, were like, hey, you might be a good fit, for this client. So that's why I always say too, like, don't burn bridges. Like I know
No,
authors
never.
sometimes they love to get online and, rant, but don't burn bridges because it really is a small industry when
It
it comes
is.
down to it.
It
Well,
is
yeah,
such
so
a small industry.
It's on both sides. Authors talk and agents talk. And I think the more we all recognize that,
talking about not burning bridges, I guess we talked earlier about, sometimes it's necessary to separate from an agent. Sometimes it's not working as an agent, author relationship. And along that lines with burning bridges, man or woman up and have the conversation,
Yeah,
Yes, you
definitely.
want to send out an email that says everything in writing, but have that conversation with them on the phone and say, hey, you know what? No harm, no foul. This just isn't working. I need to move on. I wish you the best and that kind of thing. Because for us, it's very, very personal. When we lose a client, it hurts. It's like you're breaking, off a relationship. And I'll tell you what, for those clients who reach out to me, and I had one in particular, I know how hard it was for her to reach out because she was an introvert. She was non-confrontational. She was so worried about it. I'll tell you what, I would burn the world down to help her with anything she needs.
Yeah, that's see, I love that, modality because I think authors need to take more control of their careers. And that's one reason we started this
100%.
podcast was to, let's remove some of that red tape. Let's, clear the air so you can understand what's actually going on in the publishing industry and and just make editors and agents and some of your favorite authors feel a little more relatable because
Yeah.
I think a lot of authors are just letting their careers just pass them by.
Yeah.
And you really kind of need to just grab onto it and understand this is your career and you need to take control. And I'm getting so much of that from both of you. And I think it's so empowering.
Definitely.
Well, like you said, I think you said originally, like, that power switch, once you get the offer, it is so hard for a lot of people to take that or understand it. And I preach the same thing to authors all the time. I'm like you said, this is my career. This is your career. As much as I love Cathie and we obviously work well together, at the end of the day, if she's not doing what I feel is best for me, then it's not working. Or, what you have to stand up for yourself. And like you said, I think so many are afraid to speak up because they're afraid, well, I'm going to be the needy client or I'm going to, be the whatever. But there's a way to have hard conversations. And I always tell people, as long as you're respectful and you're not screaming, you're not yelling, you're not name calling, like you're just asking a question or
Yeah.
you're asking to be involved or you're asking for clarification. That is within your right. I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm.
to boil it down,
Absolutely.
obviously, I respect Cathie more than anything in the world. Obviously, you can see we get along really well. But at the end of the day, like, she's getting a cut of my commission to sell
Mhm.
my book. Like, this is a
Yeah.
business relationship. I'm not going to go so far as to say as she works for me because I don't, I don't believe that. But like, again, you have to have a business head and you have to
Yeah.
be able to make business decisions and understand. I think so many authors are afraid that they're going to make somebody mad. And it's okay if
Yeah.
Mhm.
you make them mad. It's not okay to be disrespectful or burn a
Yeah.
bridge or, put
Yeah.
stuff on social media with screenshots and names and dates and times, whatever. Like, don't do that. But I'm sure there
Mhm.
are times where I have irritated Cathie and vice versa. And it's
Oh, me
okay.
too.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, if it was an honest, genuine thing to work out in a business relationship. I know I've made her irritated because I have told her explicitly I will not submit to this certain imprint, and she doesn't like that
Ugh.
decision of mine. But it's a business decision that we've talked about. I
Yeah.
don't feel like it's right for me. It's not what I want for, my books and my career. And we've had this talk of my reasons
Mhm.
for it. And,
Tell me
at the
you're
end of the
high
day,
maintenance without telling me you're
yeah,
high
tell me you're
maintenance.
high maintenance. At the end of the
No, I'm
day,
kidding.
like, it's okay. We're obviously still working together. We had a
Yeah.
hard
Mhm.
conversation. I am always respectful. Everyone, we joke that I'm the brat or whatever, but truly, I'm
You are.
respectful at the end of the day. And
Respectful.
you are allowed, that's what I tell people, you're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to ask for something different. You're allowed
Yeah.
to say, I don't want to submit to this imprint. That's
Right.
okay. Like, it's
And
your book.
and
Yeah.
also, for those who have relationships that are similar to mine and Kelsey's, it can be very, you might think because you have this kind of relationship that you can't leave. And
Mm.
this is something we've talked about many, many times. And I'll repeat it now. If there's ever a time where she feels like, number one, she's not getting from me what she needs, or two, she thinks someone else can do a better job, or three, she just needs something different. She just needs a switch. Yeah, I'm going to be heartbroken because I love working with her, but I also want the best for her, what she thinks is the best, and for all my
Yeah.
clients, what they think is the best for their careers. And the right agent will support you in that decision.
Just because things stall just means it didn't work out. I mean, this
Right.
is a relationship. Think of all the boyfriends or girlfriends or whoever, you dated before you found your spouse. Like, there's some
Mhm.
of them you probably hate, sure, but I'm sure there's a lot of them where it was just this wasn't what we
Mhm.
each wanted. We didn't, align. We didn't have the same
Yeah.
goals or, it just wasn't moving forward. And so you amicably part. And, if you see them in Walmart or whatever, you'd say, hey, ask them how they are. And, it's
Yep.
just because people part doesn't mean that something shady
Right.
went down. It just didn't
Yeah.
work.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more because, I mean, to be honest, at the end of the day, it's a risk on both sides. You have
Mhm.
one
Right.
phone call to go off of. You have a couple
Right.
emails exchanged. You have a manuscript read. That's it. So you can make a
Mhm.
mistake. You can get multiple authors and make a mistake. Tali, no, I'm just kidding. I actually was Tali's first offering agent, as I like to remind listeners, and she went another way. No, I'm just kidding. But honestly, we wouldn't be here today if that had happened. I don't think we'd be
Exactly.
co-hosting a podcast. I think that'd be probably kind of awkward. So,
Yeah.
but that all to say, you can make a mistake. You can go back into the query trenches. You can reach back out to the other offering agents, see if they'd reconsider. There really, I mean, there are some rules, but also there are a lot of not rules. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
we're all people at the end of the day. I think sometimes authors
Exactly.
think these agents are like these gatekeepers. No,
Yeah.
I had my eyes dilated earlier. Like, I can't even see. Like, I'm, we're just people. Like,
Yeah.
I was gonna say too, like, there's such a learning curve, right? Especially, and
Yep.
I'm sure on the agent side too, but especially on the author side, like, you go into this and you might think, I want a really developmentally heavy agent. And
Mhm.
then, that's who you sign with because you think that's who you want. And then, like all things, you get in it and you learn more as you go through the process. And then maybe a year in, you realize, this is not actually what I want. Or maybe,
Yes.
Mhm.
you signed with an agent who is on the lesser information side. They only want to update you once every 6 to 9 weeks, and that's just what
Yeah.
they personally are capable of. And you realize you need more than that as,
Yep.
an author going through it. It's okay if you realize, like, what I thought I wanted at the start ends up
Mm-hmm.
not being what I wanted. And I
Yeah.
always tell
Can I
people, like, I was gonna say, Cathie and I got lucky, I think, in that we've just continued to align in how we work. But I mean, there could have been multiple points in the process for me and Cathie where I realized, like, hey, as an author, I don't think this is what I want, or vice
Mhm.
versa. She didn't want such an
Yeah.
annoying client, and it's time to go.
That's all part of your charm, though. I
Yeah.
think I really enjoy that about you. But to that, together with that, and I just want to comment about agents in general. A lot of times I hear authors say, I need a big agent. I've got a big agent and I've got
Mm-hmm.
a new
Mhm.
agent, and they're both competing for the same thing. And I would just tell them that a newer agent is not a bad thing if they have good
Mm-mm.
mentorship. If they have
Yep.
a good mentorship, if they're at an agency that is known for doing good work, sometimes that is the best thing in the world you can do, is go with
'Cause
a
they're
good,
hungry.
hungry agent. They're
Yeah.
hungry
Exactly.
and they want
And they
that
have
sell,
time.
Speaking to
and
the
they have
choir,
the
that's me.
time. Yeah.
Yep.
So I would just really caution authors to, just because the agent or the agency has this ginormous name and they've signed these great big authors, don't ignore the smaller, newer agents so long as they have
Definitely.
mentorship and a good,
Mm-hmm.
reputable agency behind them, because
Definitely.
you may be getting way better than anybody else is getting.
Yeah. And
Grow
I think
together.
that one thing that I'm seeing right now is really people value agents who are candid and who put
Mhm.
this information out there, as Lauren said, to kind of demystify this industry, to
Mhm.
break down the gates that are up. And I think that, I mean, we were talking earlier about how it's such a small industry and how it
Mhm.
matters so much. Like Cathie, you and Vicky, you brought her up. You have
Mhm.
this great Substack
Yeah.
where you get into kind of the intricacies of agenting and what it's really like. And I think people place so much value on that right now, that openness. Like we're having
Mhm.
Jenna Satterthwaite on later this
Oh,
week, and I
she's
think that
great.
she is doing that so well in terms of really
Yes.
showing what it's like to be an agent. And it's so valuable right now, like having that real insight from agents. So thank you for coming on and for sharing that, both of
Absolutely.
you, your
Absolutely.
relationship.
What's funny is this was brought up at the beginning of the podcast, but it's been like a lingering question about it. You mentioned, Kelly, that you initially met Cathie through an offer from Rising Action. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering, were you querying while also submitting to presses? Because I think that's something that authors think about. Like, should I also be submitting to, presses? Like, what is the protocol?
Yeah, I was. I will say also, again, you live and you learn a little bit. Would Kelly today submit to small presses and query at the same time? Probably not. I don't think
Mhm.
I understood like the distinction as much at that time. But yes, I mean, at that time I submitted to Rising Action. I submitted, there was probably some other small press in there that I submitted to at the same time. But like I said, at the time that Cathie found me with that first manuscript, I was getting ready to shelve it and start querying something else. I think I
Mm.
had been out to like 85 something agents at that point. Like I was coming near the tail end of my list. And
Oh,
I knew
wow. Thank you.
you had it for 7 months
Wow.
at that point. You were at the tail end because you weren't
Truth
looking
comes
at
out.
it.
Well, I couldn't find anything better, so I sent it to Cathie. She said, "Yeah, I guess
No,
I'll take her."
that was not how that worked. You done had it. But I really respected Rising Action. I still do. I have friends who publish through Rising
Mhm.
Action. At the time they were distributed through
Simon and
Blackstone.
Schuster. Oh, you're right. It was Blackstone first, and
But
now it's
I
Simon and
think they're
Schuster.
Simon and Schuster.
Now it's
Their
Memphis.
product was something I really liked, and it was one of those like, well, if I can't get an agent with this book, I would be happy publishing through
Mhm.
them. And I really, really respect Alex at Rising
I do
Action,
too.
and what made me even respect her even more was the fact that she liked this book. Like she
Mhm.
liked this book, she wanted it. But she did not have to send me to Cathie. She could have just
Yeah.
snatched it for herself. But the fact that she said, no, I think you can get more than what I can currently offer you as a small publisher, that just made me respect her so
Hmm.
much. And so, yeah, I guess to answer, like, yes, I was submitting to some smaller presses, because at the time too, I think my thought was, well, I'll publish this one book, it'll get some experience under my belt, and then obviously I had another book ready to query, and if I get an agent with that, then we can go from there. I don't think there's anything wrong with small presses. Now I'm just high and mighty, and I have an ego, and I want what I want, and um,
You said it, my
I
dear.
yeah, and I personally, for myself, me, myself, and I, Kelly Beck, I want, a big five or a bigger publisher. That's just personally what I want for myself.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
don't think I would submit to a small press now, but that's me. Like I said, I have friends who do wonderful with small presses. And it's just,
Yeah.
I think, what you want for yourself and knowing like your own capabilities for marketing or distribution or networking and what you need, help with.
Well, and two,
Right.
there are
Mhm.
some small presses. I can think of one off the top of my head. There are some small presses that do absolutely everything that a big five will do on a smaller budget.
Mm-hmm.
But everything, distribution and editing, and I mean, and they do a beautiful job on a smaller budget. So
Yeah.
there's not a right or wrong way to go. It's whatever's right for the author at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm glad you say that because I think defining success for you as an author is extremely important because if it is
Mm-hmm.
just to get your book published, well, there are so many
Yeah.
ways to do that. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't
Yeah.
have to be querying agents. And then even
Yeah.
I know you mentioned like big versus or bigger agent at a big agency versus newer agent at a reputable agency. Well, maybe defining what a successful agent relationship for you
Mm-hmm.
will be too, and that goes back
Mm-hmm.
to creating a query list that meets your standards. Don't put every single agent on there. And I
Mm-mm.
I, I definitely made that mistake. I ended
I
up
think we all
signing
did.
with we
Yeah.
all did. I ended up
We all
signing with a
did.
great agent, but I was just sending. Oh my god, that
Yeah.
agent went live on Query Tracker. It frankly did not matter who they
Yeah.
were. I was querying them, and so
They
it's
have
just
my genre.
amazing.
Send.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Well, but
exactly.
I think there's in some ways there's so much desperation for somebody to say yes
Yes.
that we're just throwing spaghetti at a wall, and then when it sticks, it's like,
Hmm.
Exactly.
oh, did I do the right thing? Is that
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's one of the hardest decisions is to let's say you have thrown spaghetti at a wall and you did get an offer from someone that you really don't want. I mean, let's say you don't want that person. Well, that's a hard thing to say no to when you've got that
Yep.
offer on your in your hands. So be
But
really careful. But you should say no if it's not the right agent for you. But a lot of them won't. So
I
just
was
be
gonna
really
Nope.
say,
careful where you're
like,
sending out.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
think as an author, I have to remind myself this a lot, and I remind other authors too. Like, we do lose a lot of control in this process. It's just the nature of it, right? Like, you
Hmm.
can't
Yep.
control who reads your stuff. You can't control who offers. You can't control when they offer. You can't control those things. But the thing you do have control over is your no. And I say that
Hmm.
all the time. Like, you have control over your no. You have
Yep.
control who you say no to. You have control what you say no to. Like, you can't always control the yes that comes your way, obviously, like, outside of submission. But you know what I mean? Like, maybe you did love an agent and then you get on the phone call with them and you realize it's just not a fit. Like, you still have the control to say no. You have that
Yep.
right to exercise no.
Yep.
And I know it's so hard and I know it's so scary,
Hmm.
especially when you're like, but I've spent 8 months doing this and this is the only offer I got. But, like,
Yeah.
truly, if it's not a match, it's not going to be in your favor. If
Yeah.
your vision
Hmm.
for the book doesn't align, it's not going to be in your favor. Like, you are not going to be happy at the end of it, I promise. And
Hmm.
so your power is in your no. You still have
Yep.
power for no. You still have control to say no. And sometimes no really is the best answer. And I know it's
Hmm.
so
It is.
hard
Hmm.
to say no sometimes. But I mean, that's
Yeah.
sometimes Cathie gets mad at me because I tell her all the time, I'll say no. If this,
Well,
that, and
and
the other
I think
happens,
that's.
I'll say no and I'll walk away from an offer. And
But
she
see,
always laughs at me.
I love that about you because I think that's really important and just kind of from a personal side vent thing. I did end up with a small publisher for my first book. And it was one that I was absolutely the best situation I could ever. I love this agent, this editor. I would send her anything in the whole wide world. Did I get a big advance? No, I didn't. But I'll tell you what, I had a better experience than probably most people
Hmm.
have with big fives, and they were on bookshelves. But prior to that, I turned down 3 offers on my book, 3 of
Wow.
them. And that was the hardest thing that I ever did, was to turn down 3 offers, but something in
Yeah.
my gut was saying, not necessarily was saying, "Oh, I gotta have a big 5," but was saying, this doesn't
This
feel
is
right.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not right." So I think you really, really have, and I would say no, and then I would walk around and go, "Oh my gosh, I'm just sure I made a mistake," but I have to stand, you have to stand with what your gut is telling you.
Yeah.
You have to do the right thing, and I'm so grateful that I did, because the publisher that I have, I would send all of my clients to them, except they don't give big advances, and everybody wants a big advance. But I'll tell you what, they won't get a better experience anywhere else.
But
Yeah.
that's the point
That's
too, that small
amazing.
publishers aren't always bad. Like, you're with a small press and you love it. I think it's just,
Love it.
again,
Exactly.
what do you personally want?
Yeah.
What do you personally
Exactly.
define as success? And
Yeah.
are you willing to wait until you get that? Like,
Yeah. And I think the
think
danger is also when you know too much about the industry, it can be a
yeah.
lot harder to say no. So I
Mhm.
tell this story often, but in case anyone listening hasn't heard it before, when I started querying, it was a different book than the one I
Mm.
signed with my agents. And 3 months into querying, I got an offer. And I thought, great, that wasn't too hard. That was fine. I mean, it was tough waiting those months, but then I got on the call, and at the same time I had an offer for a mentorship program, and it just didn't feel 100% perfect. So I said no. And then I started learning more about the industry, and I thought, my God, what did I do? It's so hard to get an agent. It's so hard to break in. How could I have said no? Is this my only chance? And then I wrote another manuscript, and the following summer is when I got my offers and signed with my agents. So I think it's important, if you are learning about the industry and you know how difficult it is, just keep in mind that you need to make sure that your instincts are being followed and listened to. And if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't matter how hard it is to break in.
I
I think
always tell
that's so
Cathie,
important.
yeah, as I say, like,
But
I always tell her, again, she'll get mad at me sometimes, but I told her, I'm like, I made a promise to myself. I'm not going to sign a contract I'm not excited about.
Yeah.
I will not do it. It doesn't matter if it is my dream publisher. Like, if I am not excited about what I've heard or what's in the contract, or I don't feel good about it, I'm not going to sign it. And that,
Yeah.
I think, again, it's separating the business from the passion and then merging them together. Like, you've just got
But
to.
Kels, that's why you're going to be successful with this, because you are able to have
yeah.
2 different sides of your brain working. It's not all, you're
Mhm.
able to take feedback and without taking it personally. I mean, except for the time you cried and told me I bled all over your page.
You did.
But you are she really did. I now use a blue pen or a green pen or any other color pen because I can't get that out of my head now. Um, but you do take feedback really well, and you are able to separate the business side from the emotional side. That's maybe one of the hardest things for anybody to do, because these are our children. We put them on paper, and they're real to us. And
Yeah.
the most successful authors, I think, are those who can actually separate out
Mhm.
the business decision from and it doesn't have to be a clear line, but just enough that you can tell the difference between the two. And you do that really well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I think this topic, honestly, I'm glad, I know this podcast has gone a little long, but I'm glad we held on for it, because
Yeah.
it might be some of the most important takeaways of the whole episode. Because that line between unagented author and agented author, or, non-published author and published author, it is one signature away. Like, I mean, you could,
Yeah.
you get that agent contract, it is one signature, and suddenly you have this legitimacy that you have not just been writing in a cave, and you're an agented author. You can go out in the real world and tell people. And when I left my agent, oh man, it felt like such a slap to the face. I was like, man, I don't have an agent anymore. Like, who am I, like, without my agent? I'm just a writer.
Hmm.
But I think, retaining the power of that no, and just understanding that, this wasn't right, and I'm going to try again. And it's scary, but I know so much more now, and I feel so much more confident
Yeah.
in my writing. It's
Yeah.
been years since I queried a book, and I just feel like I'm such a stronger writer. Holding on to that confidence and holding on to the power of the no, like you said, I think it's huge. And know that even if you're unagented, even if you're unpublished, you are still a writer and you're still an author.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. And can I just say one last thing before you guys shut down, since you're talking about this anyway?
Mm-hmm.
I was at a presentation. A keynote speaker was talking about how many people actually get published, and I'll get the numbers, the bigger numbers I'll get off, but it's something like 80% of the population says, I'm going to write a book. And about 50% of the
Mm-hmm.
population actually sits down and begins writing a book. only about 3% of the population ever finish a book, and only 1% get published. So if you are one of those people that have gone so far as to say you're going to write a book, you sat down to write a book, you've finished a book, you've just 97% of the 97%, you've already jumped over that. You just jumped over this ginormous body of water. So to jump from 3% to 1% is a puddle jump. And you just have to look at it like that.
Yep, that's very true. Yeah. Well, this has been incredible. I mean, I would be down to sit around and talk for hours.
I
But
know, right?
I know. I have kids knocking on the door. They want to go play in the snow again. And so I'm like, I'm going to have to go.
Oh, well, thank you so much to both of you. This has truly been such a fun and wonderful discussion.
Thank you for
Thank you
inviting
so
us.
much.
Yeah.
And thank you for tuning in to the Pros podcast. Remember to check back next Tuesday for a new episode.